Hi, welcome back to the Founders Disco. I'm your host, Shuj, and we're here with Stretch, founder of Midlife Mavericks. Stretch has been in health and fitness for a very long time, and we've got a lot to learn today. Hey, Stretch, how are you?
I'm well, Shuj. Thanks for having me on the show, mate. Excited to connect and speak to your audience.
Hell yeah, thanks for being here. So tell us a bit about what you've got going on at the moment.
Right now, I've moved my niche over to working more with men in midlife, and that's been in the last couple of years. I've spent, like I said, a lot of time in health and fitness. I became a personal trainer back in 2010, and just always, working on myself, self development. Training is one thing, doing the physical work, but also all the education that goes with that. I've done a lot of health coaching courses, a lot of strength and conditioning courses, and worked with thousands and thousands of clients, whether it's been one-on-one or whether it's been group sessions, from elite athletes all the way down to sort of general population. And yeah, just recently, I've gone through some of my own health struggles as I've got older, and yeah, it's been an interesting journey, but really sort of starting to connect with men's health and see the issues that we're seeing with men's health, not just in terms of high rates of heart attack and heart disease, but also just like high rates of isolation and disconnection and loneliness. So there, I decided I'd switch around and really sort of try to focus on that, bring my skill set of training and nutrition and health and lifestyle, but also helping men set goals, create a vision, understand their values, understand their strengths, create more purpose and fulfillment in their life, especially sort of in the second chapter.
Amazing, man. That's really cool. You mentioned a bit about starting in 2010.
Mm.
What made it important enough for you to actually make that shift from what you were doing before?
Yeah, so I spent 4 years at uni studying a Bachelor of Computing with honours. So I worked in finance for one of Australia's big banks, and then I went to the UK over there contracting and working in IT. And it was that time in London when I was over there contracting that I just didn't feel a deep meaning or deep connection with the job. Going to work and earning money and finishing work, walking out of the office. What did I do today? How is that fulfilling? And also just seeing the stress, the unhealthy people, just the tension in the office, and just thinking, well, if I spend the next 10 years in the office, I'm going to be like that guy over there. And that's not the vision I wanted for myself. Some guys love that. They love working in that corporate world, and, the projects and stuff they work on, the high stress. And I'm here to support plenty of guys like that. But for me, it just wasn't aligned with my values. And that's probably the time where I really started to question, well, what are my values? And one of the things that's sort of been a big focus for me is health. And that's when I started to question, like, do I move into nutrition? Do I move into personal training? At the time, I was training for the London Marathon, and I had a personal trainer myself helping me for that. And I just really enjoyed the vibes of the gym. I really enjoyed just hanging out with different people in the gym. Everyone at the gym is there because they want to be there. And I was like, well, I can give this a shot. Why not? What have I got to lose? So I thought I'll just give it 12 months and see how I go. So I quit my corporate job, and I became a personal trainer. And probably what I used to earn in one day in the corporate world became my weekly wage. But it wasn't about that. It was more about, following a passion or a purpose. And yeah, since then, I didn't look back, mate. It only grew from there to a point where, I owned my own gym in London, a couple of business partners, sorry. And I had that for four and a half years before I decided to, leave London and come back to Australia, which is where I was born. But the big part of that too was like, here I am preaching health, and I'm living in a city that's just noise, lights, pollution, working just crazy hours, a high stress job, and my health was starting to suffer. So again, I felt out of alignment, and it was time for a change.
Yeah, amazing. And I guess what was one of the like? Did you go through a lot of difficulty making that switch, sort of mentally?
It's a good question. I think at the time for me, I had nothing to lose because I was living in London. I didn't have any dependents. I didn't have a partner. I didn't have kids. The risk was quite low. I had savings, so I could live for a year comfortably without having to stress too much about money. And I just wanted to roll the dice and give it a try. If I have nothing to lose, why not just take that risk? Because the grass could be greener on the other side, and you don't know until you step into it. when I stepped into personal training, I set myself the goal to have a gym within 5 years, and I did it in 4.5. And when we opened the gym, it was like a dream job. It was like a dream come true. Like I'd sit in the gym and pinch myself, thinking, "Is this real?" The membership went quick from 100 to 200 to 300 members, and every day you're just hanging out in the gym, training groups of people or training individual clients, and helping them with their health and fitness goals. So it was very rewarding, but at the same time, it was very demanding. It's your heart and soul into your dream job, and you're working 7 days a week, and you're at the gym at 6 a.m. and you're there until 10 p.m. sort of thing. So as much as I loved it, I think I made plenty of mistakes along the way that probably led to my burnout and my health struggles. So a lot to learn from that. But I wouldn't take it back, mate. I think it was a good decision to make at the time. And I've done it more than once now. I've changed businesses multiple times since then. And it's me so far, mate. So no regrets.
Amazing. And I guess, when you talk about, these mistakes right now, like I have this interesting reframe of like, it's not a mistake if it helps you move forward faster, right? Like you have had to go through to learn that, hang on, maybe this ain't for me. Or, even like you did, take it to the logical extreme before you realize that, hang on, this thing that you know, 4 years ago I would have killed to be in this position, and all of a sudden I'm blessed enough to understand that, hang on, I actually want something else, you know, or a different version of what I've got now, right? Yeah, that's cool. And with Midlife Mavericks, tell us a bit about like how you moved and you got into that, and sort of some of the nuances of like what you're trying to solve and
I'll just touch on what you said there about, obviously making change and fail, and a little bit about failure in that sort of sense. I think, change happens outside of our comfort zone, and it's easy to fall into autopilot and just let life live its course. We like to be comfortable. As humans, I think we don't like discomfort. We'll do everything we can to stay in that comfort zone. But if you really want to make things happen, you've got to be willing to take risks, and you've got to be willing to fail, because change happens when we learn from our mistakes. And if you're not willing to fail, then there's no you've got a closed mindset. You're not willing and I encourage a lot of the guys I work with. It's permission to experiment. You've got to fail again and again and again to learn. If you're not willing to fail, then you're just not willing to grow. So we step outside of that comfort zone. We challenge ourselves to try and do something new, to our identity and become, let's say, the man we want to become, the vision that we do have, whatever goal we're trying to set. It's a big change in identity, or it could be. So we have to step outside of that and think about, well, what am I willing to try? Let's put that into motion. Let's take some action. Try it for 30 days. Does it work? Awesome. Keep it in. Does it not work? Awesome. Even better. You figured out potentially something that doesn't work for you right now, but you tried it. Cross it off the list. What's next? Yeah. So that's the way I encourage men to sort of grow and so that they can, I suppose, move forward in whatever area of their life that they want to move forward in. To talk about Midlife Mavericks and how that sort of came about, when I left London and I sold the gym and moved back to Oz, my health went to shit. To be honest, I think it just caught up with me, like the burnout and how hard I'd been pushing myself in terms of the physical training, but also in terms of the career and running the gym. It just caught up with me, and I couldn't put my finger on what my health problems were, but I started to work with functional medicine doctors, do a lot of blood work, and we got to the root cause of like certain genetics that I've got. I had mercury toxicity, I had iron overload, I had high histamine levels. It was just playing havoc with my sleep, and of course, if you don't sleep, your health goes downhill pretty quickly. But yeah, got on top of that with right help around me. And the funny thing is, here I am working in health and fitness and thinking that I know a lot about the human body and about health, but then just being rocked by something like that and realizing how little I did know. And I think as we get older, and our genetics start to play more of a role, these health complications can come up, and it can really rock the boat for a lot of men. And I think men are the worst in terms of we try to ignore them. We try to push through. I'll be okay. Everything's fine. Oh, it's just a little ache or pain in my chest, or, oh, I can't sleep. That's just normal. We try to shove those things off. but we need to be more proactive with our health. We should be getting blood tests regularly. We should be asking questions. Women are a lot better at doing that. So from my own journey, realizing how little I knew, but also how amazing the support is out there if we have the right contacts. I studied a health coaching course with a guy called Chris Kreza. He's based over in the US. So I became a health coach and just started to play with the idea of like who are the people I want to help the most. And I think through my own journey and my own experience and the story I have to share, that made the most sense. Like connect to the story. Who am I? What's important to me? What are my values? What are my strengths? Who can I help in this area? And it just really came back to, well, I'm passionate about health and fitness. I'm the health and fitness geek and I want to go deep in all that sort of stuff. So if I can share that passion or that knowledge with other men in midlife, then that's going to give me fulfillment and enjoyment in my life. So that's where it sort of kicked off. And yeah, it's had a few iterations now. But we've got a really good program we're working through right now with a group of about 10 guys. It's called the Warrior to King framework. And we're in about week 8 of 9. So it's all coming together and it's been a really successful program so far and men are getting a lot out of it. So yeah, it's a good start. And on top of that, I'm still doing my personal training and as well. Yeah.
And that's yeah, it's isn't it how we like birds of a feather, right? We almost know exactly what someone is going through or is going to go through because based on your own experience and you can guide others through that. Yeah, there was a lot of stuff that I really liked. Yeah, giving yourself permission is a big one. That's it. Has been coming up a lot recently with that I've been working with and these kinds of conversations is that everything has to start with allowing yourself to go through what you need to go through. And your idea of what comfortable even is, right?
Mm.
um or what it needs to be like is like sometimes comfort is going to the gym, it comfort can be chicken rice and veg, like, and yourself permission to enjoy those things and to think that it's not allowing it to be stigmatized is important, like um
Mm.
and live in that culture where it's very easy to have someone jump on you for forgetting about yourself, and kind of thing, and it's yeah, interesting thought process that we have to go through to take that step, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's a lot of noise, especially in the health and fitness industry, and we've got to be careful about who we listen to. Um, what works for one person doesn't necessarily work for the next person. We are all individual. Our
Mm.
genetics, our health history, the stress we've got going on in our lives, the time we have available, the responsibilities, whether we've got kids, young kids, aging parents. Like there's so many different factors that contribute to our overall health and preaching a particular way, preaching a particular diet, preaching a particular way to train, it really just doesn't work for everyone. And that's a big thing I've learned along the way as well, because I made that mistake too. In coaching, working with clients, applying the same programs or talking to them about the same nutrition, some clients getting great results and other clients not seeing any. And me just blaming the client, oh, it's your fault. You're obviously not doing it right. But the reality is that, the same thing doesn't work for everybody. We need to understand the circumstances. And we really need to get into the details of like, let's talk nutrition. Like, let's talk the keto diet. Who's the keto diet for? And is it going to work for me? And what are the goals that I'm trying to achieve there? If I don't really look into it and I just hear, oh, keto is great for weight loss, and then all of a sudden I throw myself down that path, it can have negative impacts on some people's health. So we need to be very careful with that, and especially in our industry where just everyone's blowing their own trumpet and saying this is the best way forward. The approach with coaching and in terms of health coaching and life coaching and we do in Midlife Mavericks is I'm not here to tell you how to lead your life. I'm not here to tell you how to train, what to eat, what to do. I'm here to ask you, what's important to you? What do you
Yeah.
want to achieve? What is a small goal or a small change you can set today that's going to be sustainable for the next 30 days? What's the action you want to take? Who is the man you want to be in 5 years from now? What does that look like? What does that feel like? What do we need to do to get you there? and you're going to tell me what you're going to do. I'm here to support and help you, but I'm not going to force anything on you in that direction. So it's about accountability, and it's about listening to what's best for the client.
Yeah, yeah. And not everyone needs to get yoked, right? Like that's that look, it took me a long time to learn. Like my first dabble into what we call fitness now was my parents buying me a 10-week PT program. Where I went to, like, it was the first time in my life I stepped into a gym. And I'd played sport my entire life at high levels, but I'd never walked into a gym once. And I don't know how that even happened. Like, I think it was partly where I grew up. Gyms weren't really a thing, but you know, subsequently, I'd never had the opportunity. So, and I like addicted to it. A 17-year-old male, like, I'm gonna get massive. And I did for a while, but it's not sustainable, right? And my limitations as a person, not so much physically, but I'm like, dude, what are we doing all this for? Like, um, and I've always had a bad relationship with food. Um, and it's taken the last like 4 years actually to get out of that. Where I didn't eat at all and expected the world, where now I'm like always hungry. Um, but picky about what I eat. Um, just because I know what I feel good eating and what I don't feel good eating. Like, I'm a monster for a zinger box, but I know I'm gonna feel like crap for 3 days. Like, ain't no thing
Yeah.
like a wicked wing, you know. But it comes with and I feel like I can't the luxury of paying that cost anymore. Um,
Yeah.
and health and fitness, like you said, is different for everybody, and okay for that. Like, you know, there's a lot of, oh, you go to the gym doesn't equal you're trying to lift, 10 trucks next week. Like, there's elements, and I don't know, I feel like we don't get told that enough.
Yeah, exactly. I like what you said there. And I think, the goals of a 20-year-old or a 17-year-old stepping into the gym are very different from the goals of a 40-year-old stepping into the gym. Can they both train in the gym? Yeah, 100%. But,
Yeah.
you know, in my younger days, it was all about how much weight I could lift. It's chasing more weight, it's chasing more reps, it's chasing aesthetics and certain goals like that. And at that time, we can do that probably. We've got a little bit more time. We don't have all the responsibilities like we do when we're older, especially if we've got a family, a mortgage, all the
Mm,
extra things that we're trying to do. So we can
yeah.
train very differently. We have maybe more time to recover. We can probably get away with eating more zinger burgers or whatever we're eating.
Yeah.
But in midlife, it starts to catch up with us, especially for men. Our metabolism starts to slow down potentially. Our hormones start to shift. There's a lot going on there. And we've got to be able to find something that fits in our lifestyle around training, what works
Mm,
for you. And some like to run, some guys like to play sports. Whatever it is that you can do. Is there a better way to train, best bang for your buck? I would say yes. It's up weights, it's getting into the gym. Muscle is the organ of longevity. The more muscle we have, the less chance of dying of all-cause mortality. It's more than just aesthetics. It regulates our blood sugars. It regulates our hormones. It keeps us, in terms of our locomotion and movement, our independence and freedom. And you can still build muscle in your 40s, 50s, and 60s. But if you're not lifting weights, then chances are you're going to start to lose muscle. And the more muscle you lose, then also the slower your metabolism, the less blood sugar you can handle, the greater the chances of falls, the greater the chance of death from all-cause mortality. So
no.
I think if you've got the time and commitment to be able to be in the gym lifting weights, that's the best bang for your buck. But if that doesn't work for you, well, then find something that does work for you, because it's more about consistency and showing up than it is
Mm.
about the intensity of the training.
Yeah, yeah, percent, dude. And no, I know it's not necessarily like male related, but my grandmother and my grandfather, they were a very active couple, right? In this day and age, you'd call them fit. But again, they never walked into a gym. But every single day, they did their walk. They used to dance, so classes, they used to dance at events and stuff like that. They were, powerhouses in that element. My grandfather unfortunately passed away. There was an accident, and he didn't quite, you know, um, reach the maturity that my grandma did. But my grandma carried that through to the age of like 86 ish, you know, lived on her own, independent, like mind was super sharp. Every day she walked. That still carried through her entire life. And seeing people, much younger than that who have very low quality of life and mental capacity and physical capacity and my observation, right, zero science here, were not anywhere near as active in their life, and you see that time and time again, being a commonality between long fulfillment and sort of that early onset, you know, deterioration. I don't know what they call it
Yeah,
really, but
there's a
yeah.
lot of factors out there we've got to look at. But have you heard of the blue zones, Shush?
No.
Okay, so there's certain areas in the world where there's more sedentarians, so people who live to be 100 and beyond. And they tried
Mhm.
to analyze, these areas to try and figure out, well, what it was that was helping these people live so long. And there are many different factors. A lot of them are in warmer areas. So, the sunshine, the vitamin D, getting outdoors more. A lot of the people who are there are in smaller sort of villages and towns with great community and great connection, which is something we often don't think about. But loneliness is as bad for your health as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. And I think
Mhm.
a lot of men are struggling with isolation and disconnection. Nutrition obviously has a big role to play in that. There's just so many different factors to contribute. And, we say that we're more sedentary. And I think a lot of people in our day, in our modern society today, we are more sedentary. We don't move as much as our grandparents used to. And maybe they didn't go to the gym, but they were very active. My grandparents owned a dairy farm. They're up every
Mm.
day working on the farm, taking care of the animals, taking care of the crops, all that sort of stuff. Whereas, I'm guilty of it too. I sit in front of a computer most of the day now. My business is online. I still
Yeah.
train, I still walk, I do those activities. But I also feel that our nutrition is our food system is really broken at the moment, and again, a lot of misguided information there around food.
Mhm.
But 95% of the chronic disease we see today is caused by lifestyle factors. Nobody's deficient in any pharmaceutical drugs, and they don't solve the problem. They just mask the symptoms. So I think our medical system is failing us. Our food system is failing us. A lot is going on in our society that is focused on greed, profit over people, profit over health. And it's a hard world to navigate unless you're deep inside it and you can really understand it. There are so many confusing messages coming all over the place. And I see it every day on social media as well. And I'm
Mhm.
just like, wow, I find it hard to navigate some of this stuff. It must be even harder for someone else who doesn't work in this
Yeah.
field.
And I think short-term
So,
outcomes too, right? Like, you know, you don't like you don't go to the doctor necessarily to fix what's broken. You go to the doctor to make you feel better, right? Like, hey doc, I feel like crap. All right, go to the pharmacy, check this out. You'll feel better in a couple of days. But are are you better off? Is the problem solved, or do you just feel better? I don't like it's a small thing, but like I don't take everyday medication, right? If I have a headache, I Panadol is not an option for me personally, right? Um, and my wife is the opposite. She's like, whatever discomfort exists, she's got something stashed away that'll fix it, right? Fix it. Whereas I eat a good meal, drink some water, you know, go for a walk in the garden, deep breath, and
yeah.
then see how I feel after that. Get some sleep, you know, check it out in the morning. If it persists
Yeah.
for a couple of days, yeah, I'll consult somebody. But you know, like making it go away doesn't necessarily solve the problem, right?
No.
It might feel productive, and you'll feel good for 20 minutes, but you know. Um,
Yeah, what's the long term impacts? We could talk about NSAIDs and painkillers, and we could talk about the
mm,
impacts that has on our gut health, on our hormones. There are a lot of
mm,
downstream effects. Yeah, okay, it might take away the symptom that you're feeling right now in terms of the headache, but especially if you're taking them regularly, well, that's going to actually start to cause other problems as well.
yeah.
Unfortunately, our conventional doctors are not trained in lifestyle things. They don't get any nutrition information in their courses, or if they do, it's very limited, like maybe 10 hours across the
Mm,
many years that they study. They're trying to hear about symptoms and prescribe drugs. And unfortunately, that's not the solution, it's the band aid. And
mm,
like you say, it's like, well, okay, what's causing that headache? Or what's causing the pain or discomfort that you're feeling? Are you getting enough hydration? Are you eating the wrong foods? Are you exercising and moving? Do you have underlying gut issues? Do you have underlying inflammation? How's your stress at the moment? How is your social connection? All these different factors have a role to play. What genetics do you have?
mm,
What are your vitamin D levels, your zinc levels, your magnesium levels? What's going on under the hood? And even the tests that our general practitioners do, they're just all surface level. And that's what I found when I got sick as well, and my health started to go down. There was no way the conventional medicine system was going to save me or be able to help me reverse what was going on. And that's why I turned to functional medicine and
mm,
saw an integrative doctor and deep blood work to be able to figure out root cause. And once I had root cause, well, then it was just a matter of, okay, cleaning up my diet, using infrared sauna to help me detoxify, understanding
mm,
my genetics and maybe certain nutrients that I needed to get more of in my diet, and just adjusting my lifestyle to who I am, my goals, and what I want to achieve. And I think data is information. Data and information is knowledge and power. And the more we know about ourselves, and the more work do to really understand that, well, then the better we're going to be in terms of not just our longevity, how long we live for, but also our health span. So that's how
mm,
long we avoid disease for. Because we might be living for longer in today's society, but what do those last 10 years of your life look like? Alzheimer's, dementia, obesity,
mm,
diabetes, all these diseases that we're seeing. Is that really living? Is that the life that you want for yourself in your 80s? Or do you want to be the active dude still getting up, still participating with your grandchildren, still having, your cognitive function there working for you? And
mm,
unfortunately, those decisions need to happen now in your 40s and 50s, because what you're doing now is going to dictate what happens to you in your 60s, 70s, and 80s. And we can wait and ignore it and hope that everything's going to be all right, or we can lead it, step into a leadership role, take leadership of your own health, take it into your hands, and manage it now before we reach that point. There's
yeah.
this quote that says, change to happen until the pain of where we are becomes greater than the pain of making the change. And unfortunately, I feel a lot of men wait. We wait until our health is really bad before we make the change. We
Mm,
wait until our relationship is fucked up and we've gone too far before we make the change and we fix our relationship. We wait until we're feeling so disconnected and so isolated before we try to reach out to a mate and have a vulnerable conversation. And this needs to change. Yeah.
agreed. Vehemently. Um, yeah, I love that community aspect as well. Like, I think that's really important. Um, for in general. But yeah, I'm sort of a part of a few, dudes groups here and there. And like yeah, there's a lot of like you said, until it's too late or until they're pushed to the extreme. And I don't know why, it's sort of like maybe a pressure thing of like, unless there's something to do, an activity or whatever it may be, there's no incentive to actually like just reach out, you know? Um, and I haven't been drinking for a long time, whereas that used to be like a default, let's go grab a beer. And look, that was causing problems in my life, was, drinking as an activity as opposed to like, it was just a bad relationship, with um but since then we've adjusted, within, my friends groups to like normalize things like, hey man, I'm going to Woolies. Do you want to come for a stroll? You know,
Mm.
and you just walk around Woolworths chatting, picking a couple of things up for the house. Who cares? You know, like forget eight things, it doesn't matter. You sort of, it's about hanging out as opposed to, and sort of trying to normalize little things like that, I've got to
Mm.
go get a key cut. Who's in town? Like, let's go for a wander,
Yeah, yeah.
and that sort of adjustment has a lot of our relationships because it's okay to just be normal. A bit of time, even if it's not like high octane or we're going camping or whatever. Like sometimes you just don't have time for that. But hey, I've got half an hour. I got to do a bunch of stuff. Let's go do a bunch of stuff.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it's trickier as we age. Like as growing up, a lot of boys, a lot of men in their early days play sport. They connect through
Mm,
sport. We go to school, we go to university. We've got a group of like-minded people around us. But
mm,
then as we get older, we get a job. Maybe we move. I moved to a country, opposite side of the world. It can be hard to connect and find your tribe.
mm,
And we just keep pushing through. We people with people at work, but are they people you want to have a deep conversation with? Are they people you can be vulnerable with and tell them how you're really feeling and what you're struggling with? Or is it just surface level? Hey, how are you? What's happening in the weather today? Hey, this
mm,
project, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, we get married, we have kids, we feel the load and it tells us we need to be the provider. We need to work hard. We need to not complain. We need not to cry. That's put on men in our society today is forcing us to hold a lot of our emotions in. And we just don't have an area where we can start to release that. And that's unhealthy. And
yeah.
we need, men's groups and men need men. If you think about our ancestors, the men would hunt together. The men would sit around the campfire together. The elders
Mm,
would teach the youngers. The men would go through rites of passage and initiation from boyhood to manhood. There's a whole heap of things that would go on in these tribal situations that we just don't see in our modern culture today.
yeah.
And
Or
especially
it's
as we get to
evolved.
midlife,
Yeah, or it's
where is it
evolved
all?
into driver's licenses and first drink at the
Mm,
pub. Um,
yeah.
which like is life really that hard? You know? Um,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, I feel you. Because like, yeah, I personally like because I frameworks with my wife where we you
Mm,
know lay things out and whatever just to again prevent we had these moments where I'm like you don't know what it's like and after learning from those experiences and having a framework where actually no she does know what it's like
mm,
or at least I have an open channel of communication without fear of you know um which has brought us closer
mm,
and necessarily taken the pressure off but you know, alleviates that whole, or it's all getting too much,
mm,
But I think sometimes it's, you have to connect with your dad friends to someone to actually bounce off of
mm,
and who understand like what you're feeling as opposed to receiving a communication and then wanting to
mm,
solve the problem or like oh what can I do like nothing just chill out like I'm not saying I want my life to change it's fine but you know um yeah it's funny it's weird it's interesting right that of like even the like partner relationships that
mm.
yeah the
There's a
connection
lot to
is
unpack in what you're
mm,
sort of saying there. Like for one, I think men just need to spend more time with other men, and we can learn like who taught you to be a partner, who taught you to be a father, who taught you to play
mm,
these roles that you're playing. Like there's an instruction manual for this. We're stepping into this and we're trying to deal with it by ourselves. That can feel tough and that can feel heavy. But when we hear that other men are experiencing the same troubles, we're not there to fix them. But when we hear that we're not alone in that struggle, that other partners, other couples have fights and other couples struggle to communicate, and that this is happening and that's happening, or as a dad, I struggle with this, talking to my daughter, being present, not stressing, and we hear that from other guys and we go, oh, I'm not the only one. Cool. All right. I understand that. So I think that's a big part of just being able to chat to other blokes is just
mm,
realizing you're not alone in this journey, and it can shed some light. Hey, what's working for you? What have you
mm,
found works when you're trying to communicate with your partner? Awesome. Maybe I'll try that. Thanks for that. I appreciate it. You know, that opportunity doesn't come up that often these days, especially in Australia. We've got a big drinking culture. A lot of blokes just want to chat and say, hey, mate, how you doing? We don't open up and be vulnerable. It's sort of been frowned on for a long time, but I think guys are crying out for that connection. And that's where, something like men's groups can really help. And yeah, they're not there to fix, they're just there to listen and
Yeah.
support you.
Yeah,
Um,
and shared experience. Yeah, that was cool because we have a group. Now, mind you, we play Dungeons and Dragons together, but
cool.
um, you know, in that group, there's four of us are fathers, and one of us is um, and we sort of poke a little bit at him for being, well, you'll get there, buddy, kind of thing. But with the difference in got there because we're all
Mm,
sort of different age groups and stuff. One of the dads, I think he's got teenager, down to the two of us who have like 1 year olds, right? And we're constantly like, bro, like who went through this? Like, I'm trying this, like what is going, am I crazy? Like,
yeah.
and they're like, no, actually, right. Like, it'll either pass or like, this is what we tried and, received some
Mm,
results. I don't know. But whether, again, that, the feedback helps or not, it's usually at the very least validating enough to type out that message and hit the send button.
mm.
That, something about having that space is really like healthy for me. Like it helps me a lot just
Yes.
getting through the week sometimes. Um
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
It's funny. I think sometimes men feel that it's selfish, like when they carve out time for themselves, whether that's to, for health and fitness and training, whether it's to spend time with their mates, whether it's to play a sport, they feel like they have to be back for their partner, they have to be back for their kids. And it puts a lot of pressure on them. But, if you're back and you're not present, you're not actually in the room and you're not present, like you're stressed and you're tired or you're scrolling your phone, what's that relationship really like? And what if you could spend a bit of time away playing sport, doing a hobby, stuff that you liked, and then you came back? How would you show up differently? Sometimes, self care isn't selfish. It's actually the best thing you can do for the people around you. Working with your partner and filling up some time there, but you realizing that she probably wants some time too. So you got to give a little, in that sort of sense. And it's like, okay, if I can have this hour or these 2 hours, I'll give you these 2 hours. I'll look after the little kid or I'll cook the dinner or whatever it is.
Mm.
That's what a partnership's all about. It's like, how can we support each other so we can both show up as the best versions of ourselves in this chapter or this stage of our life we're going through? There's a
Yeah.
lot of pressure when you've got a 1 year
Taking
old.
it
There's a lot to manage.
and taking it a step further and doing something together, very
Mm,
important. Like my wife and I play
yeah,
baseball together.
beautiful.
I ended up being the coach, so that kind of, changed the dynamic a little bit over the last couple of years. But
Mm,
it's 2 hours of training a week and 2 hours, 3 hours a game day. That
mm,
is ours.
beautiful.
And really like, we come back, and straight. It feels like you're straight into the thick of it, right? The kids are like, "Yo, what's up? You've been gone forever." And we're a bit tired because physical activity, whatever. But it's a certain battery
Mm,
that half the time we don't even need no needs charging, right? And
mm,
then obviously we have our individual things. She works 3 days a week, I work 3 days a week. We sort of cover each other during those times, and then she has gym and stuff. I have a couple of activities that I do. So
yeah,
we like sprinkle the recharging through the week and the juggling and dedicated time together. It Yeah, frameworks help a lot.
huge.
You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
it helps a
I think I
lot.
talk about them as it's boundaries and priorities. So it's like,
Mm,
can we set clear boundaries? And that's, blocking out time in your schedule for yourself or blocking out time, for you and your partner to spend time together. And that's an opportunity, like, what you're doing. You're playing baseball, which is good for your health and fitness. You're connecting with the community, the people you play with, which is great for you as well. And it's also time together. So it's like, you don't just have to go out to dinner and spend time together. We can start to stack healthy things for us in that short period of time that we do have
100%.
together.
Yeah, and
And there's just
actually,
so much we can get from that when we create boundaries and we schedule that out. But then the other thing we
yeah,
want to look at is, okay, well, what are our priorities? What
Mm,
are the big things that we need to focus on? Because there's a lot of noise, and you're running your own business. You know that to-do list is never ending. There's a
mm,
thousand things you could be working on, but what is the big pieces on the board here? What are we going to move first? And when we've got clarity around our priorities, then we can start to take the actions that are going to move us towards
mm.
the journey or the goal or the process we're trying to get to, and then obviously boundaries as well. So I think your framework is exactly right. We create a framework that allows us to create the space and time to tick off work, relationships, health and
Mm.
fitness, fulfillment, lifestyle, freedom, purpose and legacy, all these different aspects of our life.
Yeah. And actually, you mentioned it, how some of those things are way more effective than dinner. Like, we don't do like those kinds of evenings anymore because it just doesn't do anything for us. Like, and you find out the hard way, right? Every now and again, there's like a special occasion or like an event or something that's based. Sure. An interesting collab has come from the city and we're like going to experience that. But just going and sitting at the same place we've been to 85 times that we're going to next week for someone's birthday anyway, like doesn't hit that spot or that thing that we're trying to establish. Like we'd much rather go to the cages and hit some baseballs or, you know, something like that and then get a snack or whatever, like you're at sport, you're gonna Gatorade involved for sure. There's, some chicken tenders at the canteen afterwards or whatever. Like it's gonna happen. But just going out for dinner just because you haven't spent time to get like do something interesting, like that's how we ended up
Yeah,
as a
yeah.
couple. And I'm
And I
sure
think
it
that
works for
flips
some
that
people,
that
you
flips
know?
as well back to what's important to you and what's your priorities. Like,
Mm,
different couples will love to go out and eat and try different restaurants, and that'll be the
yeah.
chance that they get to spend together. Maybe there's a nanny who can take care of the kids or a grandparent, so that works for them. But it doesn't work for everyone. Again, it's like, well, what do you want out of your relationship? What are the things that you've got in common interest? How can you stack not just connecting and spending time with each other, but being in the community, working on your health and fitness, setting your goals as a couple and where you want to take your life in the next 5 years.
Mm,
And depending on who you are and again, those priorities, what will work best for you. And it sounds like, the baseball thing for you and spending time with your wife there is something that's clicked for you. And it's a good thing to see, mate. Keep it up.
mm,
Yeah.
thanks. Yeah. So business podcast after all, but yeah, we went on a health rant. It's cool though. Like I like it. It's very interesting, and there's a lot that people can take away. If we let's now lightning round, and I'm gonna adjust it a little bit based on what we've been talking about. But what's the best piece of advice you've received when it comes to your and journey to where you are now?
Stay curious. I think that's the biggest thing. Stay curious. And we touched on it before about the to experiment, because health is complicated. It's not as easy as just eat clean and train. That's a very surface level. So each of us have got certain genetics. We've got certain health history. Certain lifestyles, things going on for us. So it's like, get curious, get to know yourself, do deep blood work, do your genetics, be willing to experiment. We can fall into the trap, and I'm guilty of it as well. Like I fell into the trap of when I moved to the UK, I got into endurance sports and I started running marathons. That turned into triathlons. That turned into Ironmans. I was training the house down, thinking that was healthy. A lot of running, swimming, and cycling, but that just burnt me out. It caused gut issues. It caused a whole heap of complications with my health. Here I am thinking I'm doing something good for myself, but there's that bell curve. You push it too much, and it's the other extreme. So you've got to be willing to maybe step back. I fell into that trap and wasn't willing to change my belief around endurance training for a long time until the pain of staying where I was got greater than the pain of making the change and stepping back into a different style of training, let's say.
Mm,
People make the same mistake with diet. People make the same mistake maybe with work and the stress they go through at their work. But, if you get curious, what else could you be doing right now? How else could you align your life with what really matters most to you? And I think for a lot of guys, they don't sit back and think, well, where do I want to be in 5 years? What is that vision? Who is the man I want to become? Not now, but 5 years fast forward. And if I'm not making changes now to step into the man I want to be in 5 years, well, then how am I going to get there? So I think it's that big curiosity. Have curiosity and have a vision. Know where you want to go and start to explore it. Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing. And what are you working on next in terms of your practice?
Oh, mate, there's a lot going on. Where do I start? Yeah, I think one of the things I'm learning right now is I think the power of story. And working with the men in the group we've got now, just seeing them connect with each other and share story and learn from each other is what it's about. Like I said, I'm not here to tell them how to do it. My role as a facilitator is to have 1 foot in and 1 foot out. I don't want to be leading these guys. I want to be in the circle with these guys. My podcast, at the moment has been very much, bringing in a lot of health experts, talking about a lot of important health topics, and it's great. But I'm sensing this shift, and I'm sensing I really just want to connect with more men, more guys in midlife, and I want to hear their stories. Everyday dudes, what's going on for you? What are the challenges you're facing right now? What's going well? Who do you want to be in 5 years from now? Let's go deep. Let's be vulnerable. I think that will connect better with my audience. It's not the big celebrity guests. It's not the huge information and knowledge that's out there around health and fitness. It's actually just listening to everyday dudes talk about what's going on for them. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm make that switch in my own podcast. And yeah, just keep learning and keep growing, mate. I've got a great curiosity. I've got a great love of learning. And when I'm in that zone and doing that stuff, I feel like I'm in flow, and that gives me fulfillment. Yeah.
Amazing. Let me know. Yeah, I'll hop on one day and we can powwow about the everyday life
Yeah.
in
Let's
in the country.
let's do it.
Like you said, I have similar ideas. I'm into like gadgets and toys and things like that. Like you can pretty much convince me on anything with an RGB light in it. But and you go down like YouTube is my guilty pleasure or whatever, and I'm watching like reviews of stuff, and I'm like, who who are these people? These guys do this for a living, where they just get stuff and talk about it. I'm like, not like your everyday human being just wants to now buy shit, right?
Mm,
But is it actually solving a problem in your life? Like what's the transaction between dollars and issue? And are you actually
mm,
solving it, or are you just making yourself feel better, Um and be a series of like, hey, this is what a normal person carries in their pockets. Like
yeah.
you don't need a fucking torch and a pocket knife and a SIM card tool like going to the shops, bro. Like phone, wallet, keys. That's all we need. Like what do we like focus, yeah, like little, this is what normal people do kind of series, which I thought
Mm.
might be, yeah. And so to close off, Stretch, where can people find out more about you and the work that you're doing?
Yeah, so I've got a podcast which is Midlife Mavericks. That can be found on YouTube and Spotify. I have a YouTube channel which is again at Midlife Mavericks. My Instagram is at stretch.rayner. The website was set up for my last business, which was the sustainable training method. So it's still on there right now, but hoping to upgrade that in the future to midlife-mavericks.com.au. Yeah.
Amazing. I'll link all of those in our descriptions. We're on Spotify and YouTube too. So yeah, I'll make sure that's all linked appropriately. Dude, thanks for your time. It's been a fantastic, I guess it wasn't quite as, work focused as we thought it was going to be, but that's fine. Yeah, there was a lot of cool stuff we went over.
Yeah, I'll just touch on work as we finish
Mm,
up because I think it's a big thing, and obviously your audience is very much about that. But a lot of guys I talk to, they're very passionate about their jobs, or they say they're very passionate about their jobs. But when you get into the nitty gritty, I think work can be a safe place, a place where we can hide, because we go to work and we tick off the to-do list or we tick off the tasks at work, and it gives us this sense of accomplishment and a sense of achievement, which is great. There's nothing wrong with that, a form of success. But are we hiding at work? Are we using work as a way to tick the boxes to make us feel like we're important and that life is successful, so that we're ignoring the uncomfortable stuff, our health decline, our relationship falling apart, us not being connected with our kids, us not really having purpose and legacy and meaning in our life besides work. And where is that leading? Because when you get to 80 and you're on your deathbed and you're looking back at the life you've had, what will you regret? What opportunity do you have right now to change that, to live the life you want to live? So when you're 80 and you look back and you think, hey, you know what? I was the man I wanted to be. I showed up as the partner I wanted to be, the father I wanted to be, the brother, the son, just the man. So I'm not saying that work is a bad thing. Work is a good thing. And I think guys need to have work. They need to have purpose and passion there. But we need to be careful that it's not taking over our lives and sucking the goodness out of our lives and our relationships and everything else that's important to us. It's a powerful thing to sit and reflect on that and maybe to make that uncomfortable decision about your career and where you're heading. But money doesn't buy us happiness. And when we look back, it is the time that we spend with the people we care about most and how we align our life with what matters most. That really gives us that sense of fulfillment. And I think a lot of guys get to midlife and they start to feel like, what's this all about? Where am I heading? Why do I feel so unfulfilled? What's next? And until we sit back and we ask ourselves those deep questions of like, who do I want to become? What is my purpose? What is the legacy I want to leave behind? And we start to really focus in on that, then we can be stuck on autopilot, stuck in our comfort zone, stuck doing the same thing every day, stuck ticking the boxes, feeling like we're successful, but really just letting the years tick by. So I just want to add that about work because I know that's your audience. And yeah, it's an opportunity just to sort of to voice it. Yeah.
1000%. I really agree with you. Like work, in the short term, yeah, sure, it can flog you, but at the end of the day, work is supposed to buy us freedom, right? To then go ahead and pursue whatever we define as happiness, right? But if it's not buying you freedom, if you're stuck there till midnight, 4 days a week, 5 days a week, like I hope in a year you will have some, like something good comes out
It's
of that sacrifice, right?
Are you living
Yeah,
to work or are you working to live? That's the saying, isn't it?
exactly. Exactly. Yeah, yeah. It's a fine line, and if we don't identify it, like you said, 5 years, 10 years goes by, and you're like, oh man,
Mm,
what have I done?
yeah. Mm.
Yeah. Thank you for that. That was really good insight.
No,
And
thank you,
and
Sush. Thanks for having me on, and it's been great to chat.
of course, thank you. All the best.